please. Roll call.
Commissioner Abraham?
Present.
Commissioner Galt?
Present.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Mayor Kayler?
Present. Tonight, Commissioner Abraham is doing our invocation, and Commissioner Wilson, if you'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father which art in heaven, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for the rain because we needed it. We thank you that we are serving in a capacity to help others. You have allowed us to be in this position. We pray that our decisions will be to your standard. Show us through your spirit when we are off track. With your love and grace, bring us back into where we need to be. These things we ask in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Manager, are there any additions or deletions?
There are none.
Thank you. I have a proclamation tonight for Parks and Recreation Month. This is for you, Mark. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including here in Paducah, and whereas parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in Paducah and the region, and whereas parks and recreation programs help build healthy, active communities, and whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased neighborhood property values, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction, and whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the Paducah Park Service Department is responsible for maintaining 29 city parks and several facilities, in addition to organizing the farmers market, special events, parades, day camps, sports leagues, and classes. Now, therefore, I, Gail Kayler, Mayor of the City of Paducah, do hereby proclaim July 2016 Park and Recreation Month in the City of Paducah and encourage all citizens to recognize the benefits derived from park and recreation resources and the contribution of the Paducah Park Service Department. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you,
do
Mayor.
a great job.
Thank you. I will pass that along.
You want to say anything?
Well, I know that there are some questions about last night's fireworks and those types of things, and believe me, when it comes down to being unhappy or something that things don't go all the way, I think my staff and myself we probably hit ourselves harder, and we don't need to read anybody's Facebook page, or we don't need to hit anything like that, because I think the one thing that gets lost sometimes is the efforts that were made, no matter what, by my staff in particular. We were in the office at 8 o'clock yesterday morning trying to make decisions that were in the best interests of the city. And in the end, the decisions that were predicated upon the safety of the public and the shooters. And so sometimes it doesn't work out as the way you want it to. I told the city manager it's like working in, and you've been really working out hard. The game hadn't gone all your way, and then in the ninth inning, you're ahead by a run, and you bring in your closer, and the closer didn't close. And we're kind of there with it from last night. But as far as Parks and Recreation Month, I believe we have the best parks department in the region, if not a major part of the state. And I'm very proud of my staff, and I'm proud of our programs and everything that we are able to bring to the citizens of Paducah. I think that's probably one of the things why you see those disappointing remarks, is because our standards are high, and when something doesn't go right, it affects people's lives. And I think we are an improving part on people's lives and in the lives of people in Paducah and the region.
Well, when I came down last night, I got a great parking place on the side of the street, so I was able to see all of the fireworks. But it seemed like a lot of people were downtown. It seemed like the crowd was pretty large. I know, Commissioner Wilson, you were down there.
We did have a good crowd, and really the fireworks show that we had was great. I thought it was great. You had, I don't know how long it lasted, but I would say 20 minutes, 20 to
Well, it was about 15
probably.
minutes, and we missed basically the finale is
Finale
what
was-
went off. It was missing from it, and that's
It
where
was,
we
it was a great job, and I know you were consulting with weather specialist, giving you advice about whether to go with it or not go with it. You made the decision to move it back a little bit, and then we pulled up the radar ourselves. There was looked like a storm headed our way that would hit right about 10 o'clock, so you were looking out for everyone's safety.
Thank you.
So we'll hope for beautiful blue, sunny skies next year.
Next year, absolutely.
Thank you for all your
Thank
efforts.
you.
I'm sure you were, just as you said. Your staff was disappointed as well, but great job.
Thank you very much. I'll pass it along to him.
Thank you, Molly.
Okay, Commissioner Abraham, you have the minutes.
I do. I move that the reading of the minutes for June 28, 2016 City Commission meeting be waived, and that the minutes of said meetings prepared by the city clerk, prepared by Administrative Assistant 3 in general government be approved as written.
Second.
That's what we had last week. We didn't have Tammy here.
Yeah, let me just back up on automatic there.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
But I also want to say that Commissioner Abraham did a great job with the national anthem last night.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. Okay, we'll have our motion. Commissioner Galt?
I move that the following documents be received and filed: contracts and agreements. Contract with Danny Cope and Sons Excavating LLC for demolition of the nursing home located at 501 North 3rd Street. Subordination agreement with Paducah Bank and Trust Company for property located at 1611 Madison Street. Contract for services with Paducah Junior College and West Kentucky Community and Technical College for the operation of public and governmental access channels. Change order number 1 with Mid-States Construction Company for Market Square Art Park. Paducah Waterworks financial highlights for May 2016.
Second.
Under municipal order, Commissioner Rhodes.
Can we call the roll first,
Oh.
please?
Call the roll.
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. Commissioner Rhodes.
I move that a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Adopting Post-Issuance Compliance Policies and Procedures to Ensure Compliance with Federal Tax Law applicable to outstanding tax-exempt debt obligations and to ensure that interest paid on such tax-exempt debt remains exempt from federal income tax, and designated the finance officer as the city's compliance officer, be adopted."
Second.
Hi, John.
Let me try to explain this to you in a nutshell. Recently, you may or may not know this, but the IRS has randomly selected us to be examined. And what they're looking at is the 2010 B Series General Obligation Bond, which is actually a refinance of the 2001 General Obligation Bond, which covered a couple of things. As you may recall, in 2001, the city and the county got together, and with the use of bed tax, or transient room tax, we were able to borrow around $9 million and gave $3 million toward the construction of the Carson Center back then. And the balance of that was used to pay vendors to build the Expo Center, plus some other monies. And it's a tax-exempt bond issue. And so from time to time, certain cities, counties, governments get selected to be examined, and they've given us a number of questions that I understand all the English words they use, but in the combinations I don't get. And so we had to hire a legal counselor to assist us in this examination. And as one of the recommendations, we've answered all the questions that were required of the IRS, by the IRS. But the counselor also said we need to adopt this set of rules and regulations, policies and procedures, and then follow them as best we can. And so that's what this is all about. And basically, in summary, it's to ensure the policies are to ensure compliance with federal tax law applicable to outstanding tax-exempt debt obligations. Having said all that, do you have any questions that I can attempt to address?
I'm sure the gentleman from the Paducah Sun will be right on this one.
This will probably be the headline.
Probably.
So what are those?
How often do we get investigated if you get checked over?
Oh,
Do we? Oh, I'm sorry.
okay. What
Two
was-
questions.
Okay, first
So
question.
What do we do as far as being in compliance? What are the new?
Well, I think I also gave you the proposed policies. It's up to 10.
Oh, I see over here.
Yeah,
Of
10
course.
pages. And what we have to do on an annual basis, we have 4 issues outstanding that this would apply to, tax exempt issues. And then we have several more issues that are taxable. And so there's a checklist that we have to go through annually on each of those issues, about 3 pages of those issues or questions. Now, I guess the real question is, if you were to ask, well, who cares? I'll tell you who cares. The people that bought the bond issues as tax exempt issues, if we don't do this and keep it in compliance, their issues become taxable. And that would probably lead, it'd irritate me if I had the intention of buying it as a tax-free bond issue and it turns into a taxable issue. We'll do everything in our power to keep it tax-free. And this is not unusual. It's not, as far as I know, we're not being picked on or anything, but it's just we were told by the IRS that we were selected randomly, and they are our legal counsel at Dinsmore. They also deal with this throughout the country, and they said for whatever reason, IRS has decided that they're going to look at a lot of cities and counties that have tax-free issues, and I guess they're looking for money. I don't know how else to say it. And so hopefully we won't provide it.
Hopefully not.
Okay. Now you had a question too.
No, it's fine. I mean, but you make a good point, because obviously if you bought a tax-free bond, you're willing to accept a lower interest rate than if you bought a fully taxable bond. And so why would you get a haircut twice?
Exactly.
So
Yeah. I don't think we should be concerned at all about that changing, but that's why we're doing this. We're going to do everything legal counsel has told us to do, and do our very best to make it stick the way it was intentionally. Who knew that 15 years later they would decide to go back and look, and it's a 25-year bond issue.
Yeah.
A lot's going to happen.
Thank you.
thank you, John.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. Commissioner Wilson?
I move that a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute a Renewal Application to the Commonwealth of Kentucky Department of Housing, Buildings, and Construction for Local Expanded Jurisdiction for the Fire Prevention Division" be adopted.
Second.
Hi, Chief.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager. This is just our standard annual renewal housekeeping stuff. We renew every 3 years. We have 3 of these expanded jurisdictions. This is the one for building. The other 2 that exist are for HVAC, and I think we did it earlier this year. And then electrical is also out there too, but I don't remember when it expires. But this is the one for building, and it's just a standard renewal for us to continue doing what we do.
And would this be a great time to explain that we follow the state code and we don't have our own code?
Yes, and a matter of fact, the agreement even says we have to follow their code. So that is exactly right. We don't have any Paducah rules. All the rules we follow are the state of Kentucky's rules, and that's the only ones that we follow.
Just thought I'd let us be reminded.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Has it always been that way?
No.
That's what I thought.
If you remember, Commissioner, and maybe for the general public too, a couple of years ago when we moved over here and we created the Division of Fire Prevention
Right.
out of what used to be the inspection department, we did have some Paducah rules that were longstanding, that had been in place for a very long time. And we were able to, I guess you might say, put some of the myths to bed about whether or not we needed to have those or not. And as a result, we were able to remove those from our ordinances, and the only things that we follow now are the state guidelines. That's also a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay.
Thank you.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. We'll go on to our ordinances adoption. Commissioner Abraham?
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a service agreement with Motorola for fiscal year 2016 and 2017. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The mayor is hereby authorized to execute a service agreement with Motorola for yearly maintenance of the 800 megahertz radio controllers, 911 dispatch consoles, telephones, and other related radio equipment in the amount of $32,166.48. This contract shall expire June 30th, 2017.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. Commissioner Galt?
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the Finance Director to pay Kentucky League of Cities for workers' compensation, liability insurance, and property insurance coverage for the City of Paducah. This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the City of Paducah hereby authorizes the Finance Director to pay Kentucky League of Cities in the total amount of $1,092,016.26 for workers' compensation, liability insurance, and property insurance coverage for the City of Paducah for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2017.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. Commissioner Rhodes?
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, approving an agreement with Concord Fire Protection District for dispatch services and authorizing the mayor to execute said agreement. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah hereby approves a communication service agreement with Concord Fire Protection District for 911 dispatch services, which will begin on July 1st, 2016, and authorizes the mayor to execute the agreement. The initial term of the agreement shall be for a period of 4 years. Such term shall automatically renew at the end of the initial term and any subsequent terms thereafter for an additional 4 years unless either the city or Concord decide to terminate or renegotiate the agreement.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. Commissioner Wilson?
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, approving an agreement with West McCracken Fire Protection District for dispatch services and authorizing the mayor to execute said agreement. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah hereby approves a communication service agreement with West McCracken Fire Protection District for 911 dispatch services, which will begin on July 1, 2016, and authorizes the mayor to execute the agreement. The initial term of the agreement shall be for a period of 4 years. Such term shall automatically renew at the end of the initial term and any subsequent terms thereafter for an additional 4 years unless either the city or Concord, or this should be West McCracken, decide to terminate or renegotiate the agreement.
Second.
Was it?
You want me to write that on there?
Yes.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye. Commissioner Abraham?
I move that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, approving an agreement with McCracken County Fiscal Court to extend the current interlocal cooperation agreement for 911 communication services and authorizes the mayor to execute said agreement. This ordinance is summarized as follows. The City of Paducah hereby approves a temporary 911 communication service agreement with McCracken County Fiscal Court to extend the current 911 interlocal agreement for 911 dispatch services up to and including July 31st, 2016. Further, the mayor of the city is hereby authorized to execute the agreement.
Second.
City Clerk?
Commissioner Abraham,
Aye.
Commissioner Galt,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Kayler.
Aye.
Excuse me, did Commissioner Rhodes second the motion for the West McCracken? Did you second that? Okay, I thought you did, and I added on there, just want to make sure.
Okay, we have a couple of ordinances for introduction tonight, so we just read and discuss these, and we don't vote on these tonight. Commissioner Galt?
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, approving an agreement with Reedland-Farley Fire Protection District for dispatch services and authorizing the mayor to execute said agreement." This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the City of Paducah hereby approves a communication service agreement with Reedland-Farley Fire Protection District for 911 dispatch services, which will begin on July 1st, 2016, and authorizes the mayor to execute the agreement. The initial term of the agreement shall be for a period of 4 years. Such term shall automatically renew at the end of the initial term and any subsequent terms thereafter for an additional 4 years unless either the city or Reedland-Farley decide to terminate or renegotiate the agreement.
Second.
Chief?
Good evening again. This is the third agreement. You approved the two previous with the fire districts. This is the third of 5 fire districts. The other two have not had a board meeting yet to discuss their contract. However, I know their boards have it. They just haven't officially had the meeting yet. I think Hindrance is forthcoming in the next week, and Lone Oaks is later this month, I believe. But anyway, 3 of the 5, so that's good.
Moving along.
What?
So we're moving along.
Moving along.
Thank you for your work on this, Steve.
Thank you.
Everybody. Commissioner Rhodes?
I move that the Board of Commissioners introduce an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance Amending Chapter 70, Parks and Recreation of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky." This ordinance is summarized as follows, that Section 70-32, Public Parks, Playgrounds, and Recreational Areas Available to the Public is amended to include the Ohio Boat Launch and Market Square Art Park. This ordinance renames 14th Street Park to Health Park. This ordinance also deletes Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial and the Park Service buildings and grounds from the listing of dedicated park properties.
Second.
Mayor, Commissioners, we've got a couple of things to celebrate. Of course, the health park and the playground development by the Paducah Rotary Club has been a tremendous addition to our park system. And the blood, sweat, and everything else that everybody went through. I know Alan was out there every day and for most every shift, as well as several others of y'all. And so it's been a great addition to our system. The health park is going to bid shortly, within the next month or so, on the rest of the items we have in this first phase, and so that'll be a good thing. The addition of the boat launch was not in the list, as well as the art park, which is a beautiful setting. If you haven't had the opportunity to go down and have a seat and enjoy that area, it is very nice, and that is one of our new parks. The Martin Luther King Memorial, it was basically put in there by mistake. That is actually owned by the NAACP. It is not owned by the city. But we have some working agreements as far as helping maintain it. But it is not necessarily a park. And the grounds around the park's office, where they put the new housing authority project with the seniors housing, that's what we traded for the health park. So that's why we're making those adjustments.
What is the next phase of the health park?
The next phase of the bid will be for the pathways, the green space, the community gardens, the elevated community gardens, and the fitness center. There is a ad alternate going to be for the plaza area down on the far end. So that's what we all have in the next bid. And lighting that goes along with it, and irrigation,
Oh, there will be good lighting, good.
yes. So we're really excited about that starting too.
Tell me where Cherry Park, I'm sorry.
Well, there's actually two. There's one that is a small piece of property that it's when people had subdivisions and they were looking just to give property away, so they didn't have anything to do with it. Hillcrest is another one. It's right on the end of Frank Rash's property. That's one of those types of things that and nobody wants this deeded over. They don't want that extra expensive property. I've always threatened a couple of people to put squeaky swings on it or something like that. But then cherry number 2 is the Island Creek area. So those are where those are.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
City managers report?
I just want to mention that the contractor's on site at the old nursing home demolition, so that's underway, and hopefully we'll see a different look here in the not-too-distant future as progress in that area continues. It's pretty exciting, and look forward to a lot of good things to come down there. That's all I had.
Any commissioners' comments tonight? Any public comments? We do have an executive session tonight. Who has that?
I do. I move that the board go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics: issues which might lead to the appointment, dismissal, or disciplining of an employee as permitted by KRS 61.8101F.
Second.
City clerk?
Commissioner Abraham?
Aye.
Commissioner Galt?
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Kayler?
Aye. And we will not be coming back. So meeting's adjourned. Thank you.